My 9-year-old daughter was halfway down the aisle at my sister's wedding when she pressed one hand to her chest and looked at me with the frightened eyes I knew too well. Lily had severe asthma. I had packed her inhaler, a spacer, a written emergency plan, and a second rescue inhaler that I had placed directly in my sister Vanessa's hand before the ceremony. When I asked for the medication, Vanessa said a staff member was bringing it. My mother pulled me aside and whispered that Lily was only anxious because she wanted attention. Then she reminded me that the groom's family was watching. High society, she called them, as though money could make a child breathe. Within minutes, Lily could no longer finish a sentence. My father still had the car keys. Vanessa told the wedding coordinator that no ambulance was to come through the front entrance. I stopped arguing. I took the coordinator's phone, called 911, put the dispatcher on speaker, and gave the address, while my entire family stared at me, as though I were the one destroying something sacred. The paramedics intubated Lily before the helicopter doors closed. At the hospital, the doctor told me that another delay could have killed her. My family said I had overreacted. Vanessa insisted she had never seen the backup inhaler. 4 days later, we sat around the Whitmore's dining table while every lie was tested against camera footage, electronic lock records, and screenshots saved by the wedding coordinator. Andrew brought in Vanessa's white bridal emergency bag. When he turned it upside down, a blue inhaler rolled across the polished table and stopped in front of me. Lily's name was printed on the label. That was when my mother started screaming, but by then the people they had tried so hard to impress already knew exactly what they had done. Stay with me to discover how one missing inhaler exposed years of family betrayal, and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss what happened next. That morning, Lily and I arrived at the Whitmore estate 3 hours before the ceremony. The early arrival was for photographs, dresses, and rehearsal. Not because Lily was already sick. She was breathing normally, talking about her flower basket, and reminding me that she had practiced walking slowly so she would not trip. The pale stone estate, clipped hedges, and fountain made the venue look like a private country club. Vanessa had spent months discussing every decoration, but she spoke even more often about Andrew's wealthy family. She never simply called them the Whitmores. She called them one of the county's most respected families, as though their name were a prize she had finally won. Before Lily joined the bridal party, I sat beside her in the dressing room and checked her supplies. Her blue medical pouch held her main rescue inhaler, a spacer, her asthma action plan, and my contact information. I placed it beside her cardigan and flat shoes. "You know what to do if your chest feels tight," I told her. "Tell me immediately. Do not wait because someone is busy." Lily nodded seriously. "I know, Mom. I say it right away." I carried backups because asthma did not care whether a moment was convenient. I believed careful preparation could keep Lily safe. I had not considered what might happen if the adults around her decided that her safety was inconvenient. Vanessa entered in a silk robe with her hair pinned into careful curls. 2 bridesmaids and Melissa Grant, the wedding coordinator, followed her. Vanessa kissed Lily's cheek while the photographer watched, then gave me the strained smile she used whenever she thought I was complicating her plans. I took the second blue rescue inhaler from my purse. Lily's full name was clearly printed on the pharmacy label. "This is the backup," I told Vanessa. "Lily will be with you while I change downstairs. Keep it within reach. If she asks for it, give it to her immediately and call me." Melissa watched Vanessa accept it. "I can add that to my notes," she said. "Please do. It cannot be packed away." Vanessa held up the inhaler between 2 fingers. "Emily, I understand. I am getting married, not losing my common sense. My family had trained me to feel unreasonable whenever I named a need too firmly. I almost softened my instruction, but Lily was beside me. I repeated that the inhaler had to remain close, and Melissa confirmed that she had heard me. Vanessa slipped it into the outer pocket of her white bridal emergency bag and closed the zipper. I watched her do it and believed the promise was secure. While a bridesmaid tied a white ribbon around Lily's waist, Vanessa pulled me aside. Her smile disappeared as soon as the photographer turned away. "That blue pouch cannot sit out during the pictures," she said. "It looks like a lunch bag." "It is a medical bag, Vanessa." "I know, but it cannot be in the photographs." Melissa was close enough to hear. Vanessa asked her to put the pouch out of sight while keeping it accessible. Melissa carried it to a built-in cabinet near the dressing room door, placed it on the middle shelf, and closed the door. "Problem solved," Vanessa said. The cabinet was only a few steps away. The backup inhaler was in Vanessa's bag, and Lily was breathing well. I chose not to begin an argument before the ceremony. My mother arrived wearing a silver dress, and the proud expression she had always saved for Vanessa's milestones. She admired the room and the Whitmore initials embroidered on the garment bags before lowering her voice to me. "Today is important for your sister. Andrew's family has standards. Please do not make Lily's condition the center of attention." "Her condition is not a performance, Mom." "I did not say it was. I am asking you to use judgment." My father stood behind her, adjusting his cufflinks. He looked at me, then at Carol, and chose his familiar silence. Richard rarely gave the cruelest orders himself. He simply allowed my mother to speak until everyone obeyed. Lily came closer and slipped her hand into mine. "I will be good. I will not cause trouble." She said it as though good children never needed help. I crouched and told her that asking for help was not causing trouble. She nodded, but her eyes moved toward her grandmother before she answered. Andrew appeared briefly at the doorway and smiled when he saw Lily in her flower girl dress. He thanked her for joining the wedding and told her she looked wonderful. Before he could stay longer, his best man called him back to the officiant. Margaret Whitmore entered soon afterward. She looked at Lily, rather than the decorations, and asked whether the dress felt comfortable. Then she turned to me. "Does she have everything she needs?" "Yes. Her medical pouch is in that cabinet, and Vanessa has the backup inhaler." Margaret glanced toward both places. "Good. Let someone know immediately if anything changes." Her question was the first time that morning another adult had treated Lily's asthma as a responsibility instead of an embarrassment. The photographer called for the bridal party, and Lily followed Vanessa to the garden doors. I went downstairs to change, reminding myself that both inhalers were nearby and that Melissa had witnessed every instruction. When I returned, the ceremony was less than 20 minutes away. I decided to carry the blue pouch with me. Once everyone moved outside, I opened the cabinet and reached toward the middle shelf, but my hand met bare wood. I searched above and below it. The pouch, spacer, emergency plan, cardigan, and shoes were gone. Vanessa said Melissa must have moved everything and assured me that the backup inhaler was safe, but she did not look inside the cabinet or ask where the medication had gone. When I opened the cabinet where Lily's medical pouch had been placed, all I found was an empty shelf and a white ribbon caught in the hinge. The white ribbon caught in the cabinet hinge belonged to Lily's cardigan. I pulled it free and searched the shelves again, even though there was nowhere for the blue medical pouch to hide. The cabinet was shallow, with 3 empty shelves and no space behind them. Vanessa stood near the garden doors, while a bridesmaid adjusted the train of her gown. When I told her the pouch was gone, she did not look alarmed. "Melissa probably moved it with the rest of Lily's things," she said. "She has been reorganizing everything all morning." "Where's Melissa?" "Handling the guests. Do not chase her through the main hall over a bag. It contains Lily's inhaler." Vanessa lowered her voice. "And I have the backup. You gave it to me yourself." I looked toward the white emergency bag she had carried earlier, but it was no longer beside the mirror. Vanessa noticed where I was looking and told me one of the bridesmaids had moved it into the bridal suite. "Then please get the inhaler," I said. "Emily, Lily is fine." A soft cough came from behind me. Lily stood beside the dressing table with one hand resting against her upper chest. Her face still had color, and she was not struggling to breathe, but I recognized the small pause she made before inhaling. I knelt in front of her. "Tell me exactly what you feel." "My chest is a little tight. Can you take a deep breath?" She tried. The breath stopped halfway, followed by another cough. The room was thick with the smell of roses, hairspray, perfume, and the aerosol mist the stylist had used only minutes earlier. I took Lily by the hand and led her through the side door into the garden. The cool air helped almost immediately. Her shoulders lowered, and after several slow breaths, she could speak normally again. "Is that better?" "A little." I kept 2 fingers against her wrist, while I watched her chest rise and fall. She was not wheezing loudly, and she could answer without pausing between words. It looked like an early warning, not yet an emergency, but the asthma plan was clear. Early symptoms were when we were supposed to use the rescue inhaler, not wait for the attack to become frightening. Vanessa followed us outside, lifting the front of her dress away from the grass. "Please give me the backup inhaler," I said. "Melissa is already getting the blue pouch. You just said you did not know where she moved it." I sent her a message. She knows where everything is. I held out my hand. "Give me the backup while we wait." Vanessa glanced toward the windows, where arriving guests could see us from the reception hall. "It is packed with my things. Melissa will be here in a minute. There is no reason to empty the bridal room when the main inhaler is already on its way." I did not know then that Vanessa had just sent Melissa a very different instruction. I would later learn that she had told her not to carry the blue pouch through the main hall because guests were arriving. Vanessa had added that she would handle the backup medication herself. At that moment, all I saw was Melissa standing inside the glass doors, staring down at her phone. Her expression tightened before she looked toward us. Instead of coming outside, she stepped to one side and raised her phone again. My mother approached from the garden path. "What is everyone doing out here?" Lily's chest feels tight, and her medical pouch is missing. Carol crouched beside Lily and smiled, as though she were comforting a nervous flower girl. "Sometimes, excitement feels exactly like asthma," she said. "You have butterflies because so many people are watching." Lily looked at me before answering. "Maybe. It is not something she needs to guess about," I said. "She needs her inhaler." Carol rested a hand on Lily's shoulder. To anyone watching, she looked like a gentle grandmother calming a frightened child. "You do not want your mother getting upset over nothing, do you?" she asked softly. "She has worked very hard to make today peaceful." Lily shook her head. "Then take slow breaths and tell her you are all right." I moved Carol's hand away from my daughter. "Do not tell her what she feels." My mother stood and gave me a wounded look. "I was helping. You were telling her to protect me from her symptoms. I was stopping you from frightening her." Vanessa looked toward the open doors, where several members of Andrew's family had begun gathering for the ceremony. "Can we please lower our voices?" she asked. "Melissa is bringing the medicine." I considered taking Lily home immediately. The attack had not yet become severe, but I did not need anyone's approval to leave. "I am getting the car," I said. My father had been speaking with an usher near the end of the path. He joined us when he heard me mention the car. "I moved it," Richard said. "Where?" "Overflow parking. The front drive had to be cleared for the wedding party." "Give me the keys." "They are in my pocket. I will bring the car around if the medication does not arrive in a few minutes." "I am not asking you to bring it around later." He placed one hand over the pocket of his jacket. "The lot is across the lower field. By the time you walk there with Lily, Melissa will already be back. Then give me the keys, and I will decide." My father sighed as if I had asked him to abandon the wedding. "Emily, nobody is keeping you here. I am trying to save you an unnecessary trip." That was how Richard always participated. He never raised his voice. He made every refusal sound like practical advice, until resisting him seemed unreasonable. Lily tugged gently at my hand. "I feel better outside, Mom." Her breathing had eased. She could speak in full sentences and walk without difficulty. I asked her to count slowly to 10, and she did it without stopping. The improvement did not mean the danger had passed, but it gave my family the opening they wanted. Vanessa checked the time. "The ceremony is less than 20 minutes. Melissa has the medicine. Let Lily stand near the back with you until it arrives. If she still feels fine, she can walk. If she does not, we will change the plan. I am not sending her anywhere without the inhaler. Then keep her beside the exit. I am not forcing her. Carol turned to Lily. You practiced for weeks. It would be such a shame to miss it because of nerves. She is not making this decision for you, I said. Lily stared at the flower basket resting on a bench. I want to do it. You do not have to. I know. I kept her with me near the rear garden entrance, away from the thickest flowers. I loosened the ribbon at her waist and gave her water. Every few minutes, I asked how her chest felt. She continued saying it was better. Inside the hall, Melissa looked at her phone once more. I saw her press 2 buttons and hold the screen still for a moment. She would later explain that Vanessa's instruction had frightened her enough to take a screenshot. She did not confront Vanessa, and she did not bring me the pouch. She was afraid of losing the contract and still believed the bride would produce the backup inhaler if Lily truly needed it. The string quartet began the first song. Guests turned toward the aisle, and the wedding party formed a line inside the garden doors. Vanessa came to us with a fixed smile. The medicine is on its way. You have said that for 10 minutes. Because it is true. I looked for Melissa, but she had moved toward the front entrance to handle a seating problem. Lily took another breath and told me she felt well enough to walk. Her voice sounded normal, but I noticed her pressing 2 fingers against the center of her chest. Why are you doing that? She lowered her hand. Doing what? Rubbing your chest. It is nothing. I knelt, so we were eye to eye. You do not have to protect anyone's feelings. Tell me the truth. Her gaze moved past me toward Carol. My mother stood a few feet away, watching us with a warning hidden beneath her pleasant expression. Lily squeezed my fingers. Grandma talked to me before you came back downstairs, she whispered. What did she say? Lily looked ashamed, as though she were about to confess that she had broken something precious. Grandma said I have to be brave so nobody blames you again. The moment Lily told me what my mother had said, the wedding disappeared from my mind. I took her flower basket, placed it on the nearest chair, and led her away from the garden doors before the processional music could begin. Vanessa followed us into a narrow side corridor, whispering my name through a smile because guests could still see her through the glass. Give me the backup inhaler, I said. I already put it back in the blue pouch. For a second, I thought I had misunderstood her. I had watched her place the inhaler inside the outer pocket of her white bridal emergency bag. The blue pouch had been in the cabinet, and now both were missing. You told me the pouch was being brought to us. It is. Then how did you return the inhaler to it? Her expression tightened. Melissa came through the suite earlier. I handed it to her. Melissa was standing near the entrance with her headset pressed to one ear. I called her over and asked whether Vanessa had given her Lily's backup inhaler. She looked from me to Vanessa. No, I was told the medical pouch had already been handled. Vanessa's face did not change, but the lie between us became solid. It was no longer confusion, poor communication, or a misplaced bag. She had the medicine, or she knew where it was, and she was refusing to give it to me. I turned to my father. Give me the car keys now. Richard touched the pocket of his jacket again. Emily, do not turn this into a scene. The vows will take 15 minutes. I am not waiting 15 minutes. Lily is standing up and talking. Let the ceremony begin, and I will bring the car around quietly. I reached for his pocket, but he stepped back. My mother moved between us, as if I were attacking him. Stop frightening the child, Carol said. Look at what you are doing to her. Lily's breathing had become quicker. She could still answer me, but each sentence was shorter than the last. My chest hurts more, she said. I moved her farther down the corridor, away from the flowers and the open reception doors. A thin indoor haze from the wedding effects drifted beneath the ceiling. I opened an exterior service door and guided Lily into the clean air beside the building. I sat her upright on a bench because her emergency plan warned against lying flat. I loosened the ribbon at her waist and removed the small floral collar Vanessa had insisted she wear. I told Lily to breathe slowly and stay focused on my face. "What color zone are you in?" I asked. "Yellow, maybe." The yellow zone meant warning. It meant rescue medicine immediately and close observation. We had the medicine somewhere on that property, yet every adult who had touched it was offering me another delay. I checked the time on Melissa's phone when she joined us. 27 minutes later, that number would become the line separating an early warning from the worst moment of my life. "Call venue security," I told Melissa. "Tell them Lily's medication is missing and my father is refusing to return my keys." Melissa removed her headset. "I can call 911. "Yes." Vanessa stepped between us so quickly that the train of her dress swept across Lily's shoes. "No emergency vehicles through the front drive," she said. "If you truly think you need them, they can use the service entrance after the ceremony starts." Melissa stared at her. "She is having trouble breathing. She is anxious. Her mother is making it worse." I held out my hand for the phone. Vanessa ignored me and began typing on her own screen. Melissa's phone vibrated a few seconds later. She looked down at the message, then at Lily. Her face changed. Vanessa said, "Handle the guests. I will handle my niece." Melissa did not move immediately. She pressed something on her screen and held the phone still for a moment before slipping it into her hand. At the time, I thought she was frozen by indecision. I only knew that she looked more frightened after reading Vanessa's message than she had before. My mother crouched near Lily again. "You have always been dramatic when you are nervous. Your mother was the same way as a child." "Do not speak to her like that," I said. Carol stood. "I am trying to calm her. You signed her asthma action plan 6 months ago. You sat beside me while the respiratory nurse explained what happens when she cannot get rescue medication." My mother's eyes flickered toward Vanessa. "That hospital visit was different," she said. "She was wheezing badly that time." The words silenced me for half a breath. Carol remembered. She remembered the hospital, the nurse, the danger signs, and the instructions. Her claim that Lily was merely seeking attention had never come from ignorance. "She is getting worse now," I said. "She is still talking. That is not the standard, and you know it." Richard appeared at the service door and told me the officiant was waiting. I asked him for the keys again. "You are not taking the car through the guest entrance while everyone is being seated," he said. "If you insist on leaving, I will bring it around after the vows. You are keeping a sick child here for photographs and music." "I am keeping everyone calm." "No, you are keeping Vanessa comfortable." Lily pulled at my sleeve. Her fingers felt colder than they had a few minutes earlier. "Mom, I cannot get a big breath." I asked her to say her full name and birthday, the simple check we used when I needed to hear how much air she had. "My name is Lily Carter. My birthday is..." She stopped before the date and took 2 quick breaths. I looked at the clock on Melissa's phone again. 17 minutes had passed since Lily first told me the tightness was getting worse. I no longer cared who saw us leave, but the keys were still in Richard's pocket. The medication was still missing, and the nearest ambulance had not been called. Melissa stepped closer. "Emily, I think we should call..." Vanessa glared at her. "I told you the service entrance can be used after the ceremony. You do not control when an ambulance comes," I said. Vanessa looked toward the garden, where the quartet had stopped, and guests were beginning to turn in their seats. "You are doing exactly what Mom warned me you would do," she said. "You cannot stand one day being about someone else." I almost answered, but Lily made a sound that erased every word in me. It was not a cough or a cry. It was a thin, strained pull for air. I knelt in front of her again. Her shoulders lifted with each breath. The color around her mouth had faded, and when I asked whether she felt dizzy, she could only nod. "Tell me where it hurts." "My chest." She could not finish. 27 minutes had passed since she first clearly said her chest was tightening. I stood and took Melissa's phone from her hand. My mother ordered me to stop. Richard said I was overreacting. Vanessa said the ambulance would use the back entrance and wait until the vows were finished. I dialed 911, put the call on speaker, and gave the estate address before anyone could interrupt me. The dispatcher asked Lily's age, whether she was conscious, and whether she could speak in full sentences. I answered while keeping one hand on my daughter's shoulder. Then the dispatcher asked whether Lily had a rescue inhaler available. Vanessa leaned toward the phone. "No," she said. Vanessa said Lily had no inhaler so quickly that the dispatcher had not even finished the question. I looked at my sister and felt the last of my uncertainty disappear. "That is not true," I said toward the phone. "I gave her a backup inhaler this morning. The main medical pouch is missing, and she will not tell me where either one is." Vanessa reached for Melissa's phone, but I turned away and kept it on speaker. The dispatcher asked me to stay beside Lily, watch whether she remained conscious, and report every change in her breathing. Her calm voice filled the service corridor, forcing my parents, my sister, and the nearby staff to hear the words they had tried to dismiss. Lily was awake, but each breath lifted her shoulders. When I asked her name again, she managed only Lily before stopping for air. The dispatcher told me not to make her walk, and not to give her food or water. She said paramedics were already on the way, and asked which entrance would reach us fastest. "The front drive," I answered. "We are beside the garden hall, near the front of the estate." Vanessa turned to Melissa. "Tell them to use the service gate. Guests are standing in the front drive." "No," I said. "They will use the fastest entrance. The service road comes around the same building. It is longer, and you know it." Vanessa lowered her voice, as if that could make her demand sound reasonable. "An ambulance cannot drive through the wedding party." I looked down at Lily, whose fingers were tightening around my wrist. "Then the wedding party can move." Melissa raised her radio, but before she could speak, Margaret Whitmore entered the corridor. She had heard the dispatcher through the open garden doors. Her eyes moved from Lily's strained face to the phone in my hand. "What is happening?" she asked. "Lily is having a severe asthma attack. Her medication is missing, and the ambulance is coming." Margaret did not ask whether I was certain. She took the radio from Melissa and told security to clear the entire front drive immediately. She ordered the ushers to move every guest inside and said no employee was to delay or redirect emergency personnel. Vanessa stared at her. "Margaret, the ceremony is about to start." Margaret's expression hardened. "A child cannot breathe. There is no ceremony until she is safe." The guests nearest the doors began moving back. The quartet stopped playing. Chairs scraped against stone, and the polished order Vanessa had protected all morning broke apart in less than a minute. My father finally pulled the car keys from his pocket. "Take them," Richard said. "I will help you get her to the hospital." I reached for them, but the dispatcher heard him. "Do not drive her yourself," she said through the speaker. "Her breathing is worsening, and she needs medical treatment during transport. Keep her seated upright and wait for the paramedics." Richard stood there with the keys in hand. He had withheld them while Lily could still speak, then offered them only after they were no longer the safest option. Carol knelt several feet away and began crying. She kept saying Lily had seemed fine only minutes earlier. I did not answer. I held my daughter upright, counted her breaths for the dispatcher, and told her help was coming. The sirens reached us before the ambulance appeared. Vanessa flinched at the sound. Margaret walked into the front drive herself and waved the vehicle toward the garden entrance. The paramedics moved faster than anyone I had ever seen. One placed an oxygen mask over Lily's face, while another listened to her chest and asked me what medication she normally used. I explained the missing pouch, the backup inhaler, and the delay. They gave emergency treatment immediately, but Lily's chest still barely moved. One paramedic looked at his partner, and I understood from their faces that the situation was worse than they wanted to say in front of her. They lifted Lily onto a stretcher. I climbed into the ambulance beside her while a paramedic continued working. My mother tried to follow, but I told her to stay away. She looked shocked, as though this were the first unkind thing anyone had done that day. The ambulance took us to a nearby landing area, where a medical helicopter was waiting to transfer Lily to the pediatric hospital. I sat strapped beside her, unable to touch more than the edge of her blanket, while the flight team worked around the oxygen mask and monitors. I kept thinking about the blue inhaler I had placed in Vanessa's hand. Something small enough to fit in a pocket had become the difference between early treatment and a flight to intensive care. At the hospital, a team carried Lily through doors. I was not allowed to enter. A nurse guided me into a consultation room and asked the same questions again. When had the symptoms begun? When had she last used a rescue inhaler? Why had the medication not been available? Why had emergency services not been called sooner? I answered every question without protecting anyone. Dr. Helen Brooks came in after what felt like hours, although the clock showed less than 40 minutes. She sat across from me and spoke slowly. Lily is not responding well enough to the treatment on her own. We need to place a breathing tube and use a ventilator to support her while the medication works. The words struck me, one at a time. Will she be awake? She will receive medicine to keep her sedated and comfortable. The tube passes through her vocal cords, so she will not be able to speak while it is in place. I signed the consent form with a hand that would not stop shaking. When Dr. Brooks returned, Lily had been intubated and transferred to the pediatric intensive care unit. The ventilator was breathing for her. The doctor told me her condition was serious, but that they had stabilized her enough to continue treatment. Did the delay cause this? I asked. We cannot say exactly what would have happened under different circumstances, she said. But rescue medication is most effective when given early, and the delay allowed the attack to become much more severe. Another delay could have been catastrophic. Carol and Richard arrived while I was standing outside the intensive care room. My mother reached for me, but I stepped back. We need to be careful what we tell the hospital, she whispered. Lily was anxious. You should make sure they understand that before they turn this into something bigger. I stared at her, through the glass reflection. Behind us, a machine was breathing for her granddaughter. She was not anxious, I said. She was having an asthma attack, and all of you knew it. Emily, I am trying to protect the family. I am done protecting the family from what it did. A woman named Dana Pierce introduced herself as the hospital social worker. She asked Carol and Richard to wait elsewhere, then sat beside me with a folder on her lap. Her voice was gentle, but her questions were exact. Who had last seen the main medical pouch? Who had accepted the backup inhaler? Who controlled the car keys? Who told the coordinator not to call or redirect emergency services? Dana wrote down every name and every answer. I later learned that events were being documented at the estate at the same time. Melissa filed an incident report describing the missing medication, Vanessa's messages, and the emergency call. Margaret ordered the bridal suite locked before anyone could remove a single item. She told management to preserve the security footage, electronic lock records, staff communications, and every bag left inside. Vanessa tried to return for her white bridal emergency bag. The estate manager refused to let her enter until the report and inventory were complete. For the first time that day, my sister discovered that saying something belonged to her did not mean she could make the evidence disappear. I sat beside Lily's bed after midnight. Her eyes were closed, the tube was secured across her mouth, and the ventilator released a soft mechanical breath she could not take for herself. Dana stood at the foot of the bed and opened her folder again. I need to know something before we continue, she said. Which members of your family had been taught what Lily's danger signs meant? My mother? I told Dana. Carol Carter attended Lily's respiratory appointment 6 months ago. My father was there for part of it too, but Carol stayed while the nurse explained the danger signs. Dana wrote their names in her folder. Behind her, the ventilator lifted Lily's chest with a steady mechanical rhythm. My daughter had always filled quiet rooms with questions, stories, and small observations. Now a tube crossed her mouth. Tape held it in place, and a machine made every breath she could not take for herself. Daylight reached the pediatric intensive care unit before I realized the night had passed. Lily remained sedated. Dr. Brooks examined her, reviewed the monitor, and told me the medication was beginning to reduce the swelling in her airways, but she was not ready to breathe without support. "When can you remove the tube?" I asked. "When she can maintain her breathing, oxygen level, and alertness safely," Dr. Brooks said. "We will reduce the sedation gradually and assess her. Removing it too early could put her through another emergency." I wanted a time, but she would not give me a promise medicine could not keep. I nodded and sat down again. There would be no sudden recovery just because I needed to hear Lily's voice. Dana returned later that morning and asked me to describe the wedding from the beginning. I told her about the blue medical pouch in the cabinet, the backup inhaler I had placed in Vanessa's hand, and Melissa witnessing the exchange. I explained how the pouch disappeared, how Vanessa gave changing answers, and how Richard kept the car keys while insisting we wait. I also repeated the words my mother had used. Lily wanted attention. Lily was anxious. Lily was making the day about herself. Saying those sentences aloud inside an intensive care unit made them sound even more cruel than they had at the estate. "Did Lily have a written asthma action plan?" Dana asked. I opened the document stored on my phone and emailed her the most recent copy. I also remembered that a printed version had been inside the missing pouch. Dana studied the page, then enlarged the section listing the red zone symptoms: trouble speaking, struggling for breath, blue or pale lips. Call emergency services if rescue medication does not give rapid relief. At the bottom was the acknowledgement from Lily's previous hospital visit. I had signed as her mother. Beneath my name was Carol Carter's signature, because she had volunteered to help care for Lily after school. Dana turned the screen toward me. "Your mother signed that she received these instructions?" "Yes." The respiratory nurse explained every section to both of us. The memory returned with painful clarity. Carol had asked whether anxiety could resemble asthma. The nurse had said it could, but warned her never to assume anxiety when a child with asthma reported chest tightness or could not speak normally. My mother had nodded and signed. She had known exactly what Lily's symptoms meant. A nurse came to tell me Carol and Richard were in the waiting area, asking to see their granddaughter. My first instinct was the one my family had trained into me. Let them in. Avoid another argument. Do not make the situation worse. Then I looked at Lily. "No," I said. "Please do not admit them to the unit." The nurse asked whether I wanted that restriction documented. My voice shook, but my answer did not. "Yes, neither of them is allowed near Lily unless I give permission." It was the first boundary I had ever set that my parents could not talk me out of. I expected guilt to crush me. Instead, I felt a small space open inside my chest where fear had always lived. Carol called repeatedly. When I did not answer, she sent messages saying she loved Lily and had only been trying to prevent panic. Richard wrote that families should not make permanent decisions during emotional moments. I saved the messages and placed my phone face down. Vanessa's apology arrived near noon. It was written like a statement prepared for strangers. She said she was sorry that Lily had suffered what appeared to be an anxiety-related respiratory event. She claimed everyone had been confused, and that I had escalated the situation in front of guests before anyone could understand what was happening. She never mentioned the blue pouch. She never explained why she told the dispatcher Lily had no inhaler. She never admitted taking the backup medication from me. Her last sentence asked me to correct any misunderstanding before rumors damaged her marriage. I read the message once, then forwarded it to Dana without replying. A few minutes later, Andrew texted me. He apologized for contacting me while Lily was in intensive care and said Vanessa had told him the attack had been sudden. Then he asked one question. "Did you personally give Vanessa the backup inhaler?" I wrote that I had placed it in her hand in the dressing room, in front of Melissa. I told him Vanessa had put it into the outer pocket of her white bridal emergency bag. Andrew did not answer immediately. When he finally did, his message was brief. She will not tell me where it went. For the first time, someone inside Vanessa's new family was not accepting her version simply because she delivered it calmly. Late that afternoon, Dr. Brooks began reducing Lily's sedation. She opened her eyes only briefly and seemed confused by the tube. I stood where she could see me and told her she was safe, that she was in the hospital, and that she did not need to fight the equipment. She tried to lift one hand. I held it carefully and repeated that I was not leaving. The breathing assessment continued into the evening. Lily had to prove she could take sufficient breaths on her own before the medical team removed the tube. Each test felt endless, but Dr. Brooks refused to rush. Early the next morning, she told me Lily had met the criteria for extubation. The team asked me to wait outside while they removed the tube. When I returned, an oxygen tube rested beneath Lily's nose. Her lips were dry, her face exhausted, and her eyes more alert. The ventilator was gone. I wanted to ask her everything, but the nurse warned me that her throat would be painful and her voice weak. Lily answered my first questions by nodding. She squeezed my hand to tell me she knew where she was. I gave her a small writing board. Her fingers trembled as she wrote 3 words. "Are you mad?" I had to read them twice before I understood. "No, sweetheart, I am not angry with you. None of this was your fault." She stared at the board. Then she wrote again. I tried hard. I pressed my forehead gently against her hand. "You never had to try that hard. You only had to tell me you needed help." Her eyes filled with tears, but she was too tired to explain. I did not force her. Several hours later, after she had rested and taken small sips under the nurse's supervision, Lily tried to speak. Her voice was barely more than a hoarse whisper, and every word seemed to hurt. "Grandma said people would blame you." I moved closer. "Blame me for what?" "For stopping the wedding." Lily swallowed and winced. "She said they already think you ruined things for Aunt Vanessa." I wanted to tell her Carol was wrong, but Lily had one more truth to give me. "I kept saying I was okay," she whispered. "I thought if I could wait, they would not hate you." The guilt that struck me was sharper than anything my family had said. Lily had watched me spend years keeping peace with people who punished disagreement. Without meaning to, I had taught her that love required silence and that protecting me meant hiding her own pain. I took her hand and made the promise I should have made long before the wedding. "You will never have to suffer to keep anyone happy again. Not Grandma, not Grandpa, not Vanessa, and not me." Lily closed her eyes, still holding my fingers. Across the room, Dana had placed the asthma action plan in Lily's hospital file. At the bottom of that page, beneath every warning Carol later claimed she had not understood, was my mother's unmistakable signature. The signature at the bottom of Lily's asthma action plan changed the way I saw everything that had happened at the wedding. Until that moment, part of me had still wondered whether my mother had convinced herself that Lily was merely anxious. The document removed that excuse. Carol had sat through the medical instructions, heard the warning signs, and signed her name beneath them. While Lily slept, I asked Dana what I should do next. My first responsibility was protecting my daughter, but I also knew how quickly my family could reshape the truth. By the time I was a teenager, my mother could turn any argument into proof that I was jealous of Vanessa. I was afraid the wedding would become another story, in which everyone remembered my reaction, but forgot what caused it. "Do not confront anyone for evidence," Dana told me. "Do not threaten them, and do not post accusations online. Save every message and allow the hospital and investigators to document what they can verify." I had already received calls from guests who wanted to know what happened. One woman said people were claiming Lily had experienced a panic attack after I became upset. Another said Vanessa told relatives that the ambulance had been unnecessary. For a few angry minutes, I imagined posting a photograph of Lily's ventilator beside Vanessa's message about protecting her marriage. I wanted every person at that wedding to understand what my family had done. Then I looked at my daughter sleeping beneath a hospital blanket. Public humiliation would not make her safer. It could also give Vanessa another opportunity to claim I had always wanted attention. I put my phone down and asked Dana how evidence from the estate could be preserved before anything was deleted or removed. She helped me write a clear request. I asked the venue to retain security footage from the dressing room's corridors, garden entrance, service hallway, and front drive. I also requested preservation of electronic door records, staff communications, the incident report, and every item secured inside the bridal suite after Lily's medication was reported missing. I did not accuse anyone of a crime. I stated the time of the medical emergency, identified the missing pouch and backup inhaler, and explained that the materials might be relevant to an official investigation. Dana reviewed the wording before I sent it to Margaret Whitmore and the estate manager. Margaret replied less than an hour later. Her message was calm and precise. She confirmed that Melissa had completed an incident report after the ambulance left. Based on that report, management had already secured the bridal suite and restricted access to the belongings inside it. The camera files, lock records, and staff communications had been copied and preserved. She did not promise revenge or tell me she would destroy Vanessa. She simply wrote that a child had suffered a serious medical emergency on Whitmore property and that every relevant record would be protected. For the first time since Lily collapsed, I felt that the truth was no longer resting entirely on my memory. Dr. Brooks came in later that morning to examine Lily. My daughter's breathing was improving, but her throat remained painful after the tube, and speaking tired her quickly. The doctor asked her only necessary questions, then encouraged her to rest. When we stepped into the hallway, I asked whether she could document what the delay had meant medically. I can document Lily's condition when she arrived, the treatment she required, and what you reported about the missing rescue medication, Dr. Brooks said. I can also state that early use of rescue medication is part of her treatment plan. Can you say they caused her to be intubated? I cannot make a legal conclusion or tell you exactly what would have happened under different circumstances. I can document the medical facts. Her honesty mattered more than an exaggerated promise. The facts were severe enough without asking anyone to guess. Dr. Brooks added a note describing Lily's respiratory distress, the emergency treatment, the need for ventilation, and the reported absence of timely access to her prescribed rescue inhaler. She also documented that I had called 911 once Lily showed clear danger signs. Dana later told me she had contacted the appropriate authorities regarding suspected medical neglect and interference with Lily's care. She made sure the report distinguished my actions from those of my family. You searched for the medication, tried to leave, requested the keys, and called emergency services when her condition worsened, she said. That needs to remain clear. I had spent so many years defending myself against my parents that hearing someone state the sequence plainly almost made me cry. Carol called that afternoon from a number I did not recognize. I answered because I thought it might be connected to the investigation. Emily, please listen before you hang up, she said. I did not understand that asthma could become dangerous that quickly. Her voice was soft and unsteady, the voice she used when she wanted to sound more wounded than responsible. You attended Lily's hospital appointment on January 12th, I said. I have attended many appointments. You signed her asthma action plan that day. There was a brief silence. I opened the copy on my phone and read the acknowledgement aloud. It stated that the caregiver had received instructions about rescue medication, emergency symptoms, and when to call 911. Then I read the name beneath mine. Carol Carter, I said. That is your signature. I sign papers people put in front of me. No one expects a grandmother to understand every medical term. The nurse used plain language. She told you that if Lily could not finish a sentence, we were not supposed to wait. You were there. You are her mother, and you stood between me and the exit while she was getting worse. Carol's breathing changed. The helpless tone disappeared. Vanessa just got married, she said. Do you understand what this could do to her? Andrew's family will never look at her the same way if you keep treating this like some deliberate act. Lily could not breathe. But she survived. Vanessa's entire future should not be destroyed, because everyone made mistakes during a stressful moment. There it was again. Lily's survival was being used as proof that what they had done should not matter. You are asking me to protect Vanessa from the consequences of refusing to protect my child. I am asking you to think about the family. I am thinking about the only member of this family who was lying in intensive care. I ended the call before she could turn the conversation into another accusation. I had not recorded her secretly. Instead, I wrote down the time, the number she used, and the substance of what she said while the conversation was still fresh. A few minutes later, Carol sent 3 messages. The first said she had signed the action plan without reading it. The second said Vanessa had never intended for Lily to be harmed. The third warned that continuing the investigation could end Vanessa's marriage before it had truly begun. I forwarded all 3 messages to Dana. That evening, Andrew contacted me again. He asked whether I was absolutely certain Melissa had witnessed the handoff of the backup inhaler. I told him where each of us had been standing. Vanessa had been beside the dressing table. Melissa had been near the door with her planning folder. I had shown them Lily's name on the pharmacy label before placing the inhaler into Vanessa's hand. Andrew thanked me and said nothing more. I later learned that he had asked Vanessa the same question immediately afterward. She told him I had never given her an inhaler. When he mentioned Melissa, Vanessa said the coordinator was lying to protect herself because she had lost Lily's medical pouch. Vanessa had moved from claiming she returned the inhaler to denying she had ever received it. Margaret listened without interrupting. Then she told Andrew that Melissa had already described the handoff in her incident report. She had also preserved screenshots from the wedding day because Vanessa's instructions had frightened her. Margaret did not show him the screenshots yet. She only told him they existed and that their timestamps matched the period when Lily was struggling to breathe. Andrew later admitted that this was the moment his fear changed. He was no longer wondering whether his new wife had panicked during an emergency. He was beginning to wonder whether he had married a woman he had never truly known. The morning after I confronted my mother about her signature, Dana told me that Melissa Grant had agreed to meet with the investigator assigned to Lily's case. She was bringing the phone she had used during the wedding and had offered it voluntarily before anyone requested a warrant or formal order. Lily was still in the hospital, breathing without the ventilator, but tiring easily. Her voice remained hoarse, and Dr. Brooks wanted her to rest as much as possible. I stayed beside her while Dana attended the interview, then returned that afternoon with an investigator named Mr. Harris. He did not tell me what charges anyone might face. He explained that his job was to establish the sequence of events and determine whether the delay in Lily's care had been accidental or deliberate. Melissa's phone had provided the first independent account that did not belong to me, my parents, or Vanessa. The first screenshot was taken before the ceremony. Vanessa had instructed Melissa to move Lily's blue medical pouch out of sight because guests were entering the bridal area. She specifically told her not to carry it through the main hall. Melissa replied that the pouch contained medication and asked where it should be kept. Vanessa answered that she would handle it. The time shown on the screenshot matched the period when I was downstairs changing. It also matched the electronic record showing that the cabinet in the dressing room had been opened and the pouch removed. The second screenshot was taken after Lily began having trouble breathing. Melissa had written that Lily appeared unwell and asked whether she should call 911. Vanessa's answer was short. No ambulance before the ceremony ends. My mother is handling Lily. I read the message twice. Vanessa had later claimed no one understood the seriousness of the situation. The screenshot showed that Melissa had named the emergency service directly and Vanessa had rejected it. Mr. Harris explained that the screenshots were not being treated as the only evidence. Their timestamps would be compared with call records, camera footage, witness statements, and the electronic access logs from the estate. Melissa's call history showed that Vanessa had telephoned her less than a minute after sending the second message. The call lasted 43 seconds. During the interview, Melissa admitted that Vanessa ordered her to delete their conversation. Melissa removed the chat from the main message screen because she was frightened that refusing the bride would cost her the contract and damage her business. However, the screenshots she had already taken remained in her photo library. She said the instructions felt wrong as soon as she read them, Dana told me. That is why she captured the screen before answering the call. Then why did she wait? I asked. It was not a fair question coming from me. I had also waited while my family minimized Lily's symptoms, although I had acted as soon as the danger became unmistakable. Still, Melissa had possessed a phone and had known an ambulance might be necessary. She admitted that, Mr. Harris said, she believed Vanessa had the backup inhaler and assumed the family would use it if Lily became worse. She was also afraid of creating a confrontation during the ceremony. Melissa had not tried to present herself as a hero. She acknowledged that she should have challenged Vanessa sooner. She said that watching Lily leave in the ambulance had forced her to understand what her silence might have cost. Her honesty made her testimony stronger. She was not pretending she had done everything correctly. She was explaining why she had failed to act and why she had decided not to hide the evidence afterward. The estate's electronic lock records added another part to the sequence. Shortly before the ceremony, Vanessa's access code had opened a secured supply room near the bridal suite. That was the room where staff had temporarily placed items removed from the dressing area. Several minutes later, Vanessa's code opened the private bridal suite. The records did not reveal what she carried, but they proved that she had entered both locations during the period when she claimed she had been waiting outside and knew nothing about the missing pouch. The cameras provided no perfect recording of every sentence. Most had no audio, and none showed the interior of the private dressing rooms. What they did show was enough to confirm several actions. One camera captured my father standing in the service corridor with his hand over the pocket containing my keys. It showed me reaching toward him and Richard stepping back. Another angle showed him remaining between me and the path to the parking area, while Lily sat nearby struggling to breathe. A second camera showed my mother positioning herself between Lily and the exterior door. Carol later claimed she was only trying to comfort us. The footage showed her blocking the shortest path outside, while I repeatedly pointed toward the exit. The video could not record their words, but it made their later denials harder to sustain. Richard had said he never prevented me from leaving. Carol had said she stayed out of the way. Their movements told a different story. Margaret and Andrew viewed the records with the estate manager before anyone contacted Vanessa about a family meeting. Margaret later called me from a private office at the hospital and described Andrew's reaction. He did not shout or break anything. He watched the footage twice, then placed the printed screenshots beside Vanessa's messages to him. Vanessa had told him the attack happened without warning. The records showed nearly half an hour of requests, delays, and changing explanations. She had told him no one suggested calling an ambulance until I panicked. Melissa's screenshot proved that she had been asked directly. She had told him she never received an inhaler. 3 people had now confirmed that she accepted it from my hand. Andrew finally understood that his wife had not made one frightened mistake during an emergency. She had made a series of decisions, then constructed a different version after Lily was taken away. He contacted an attorney that afternoon and asked about separating immediately and ending the marriage through the fastest lawful process available. The attorney did not promise an annulment or an instant solution. He advised Andrew to remain apart from Vanessa, preserve all communications, and wait until the facts had been reviewed before choosing the correct legal action. Vanessa was still staying with my parents. According to Andrew, she believed the Whitmores were gathering information to contain the scandal and protect their family name. She expected Margaret to arrange a private agreement, silence the venue staff, and persuade me not to cooperate with investigators. Margaret allowed Vanessa to keep believing that. She invited Vanessa, Carol, and Richard to the Whitmore residence 4 days after the wedding. The stated purpose was to compare everyone's account and resolve questions about Lily's missing medication. When Margaret asked me to attend, my first reaction was refusal. I did not want to sit across from the people who had watched Lily lose the ability to speak and still told me to wait. I also did not want to leave my daughter while she was recovering. Dr. Brooks confirmed that Lily was medically stable, no longer needed invasive breathing support, and could remain safely with the hospital staff for a short period. A longtime friend from work agreed to sit beside her until I returned. Lily knew where I was going, and asked me not to let Grandma tell everyone she had been pretending. I will not let anyone rewrite what happened, I promised. Before leaving, I placed copies of the asthma action plan, Carol's signed acknowledgement, and Vanessa's messages into a folder. I did not bring them because I wanted revenge. I brought them because every time my family had hurt me before, they survived by convincing me that my memory was wrong. That advantage was gone. On the afternoon of the meeting, Margaret asked Melissa to come to the Whitmore residence with her phone. Melissa arrived pale and visibly nervous, but she did not turn back when she saw Vanessa's car in the driveway. She looked at me before we entered the dining room. "I should have called sooner," she said. "I cannot change that, but I will not lie about what she told me." Inside, Vanessa was already seated beside our parents, dressed as though she were attending a business meeting. She gave Melissa one cold glance, and then asked Margaret when they could begin discussing how to protect both families from further embarrassment. Melissa walked to the table, placed her phone in front of us, and looked directly at my sister. "Vanessa told me to delete the messages," she said. "She never asked whether Lily was alive." Melissa placed her phone on the table and said, "Vanessa told me to delete the messages. She never asked whether Lily was alive." The confidence on my sister's face faltered, but only for a moment. She leaned back in her chair and looked at Margaret as though Melissa were an employee who had forgotten her place. "This is exactly why we need to handle this privately," Vanessa said. "People are trying to protect themselves by blaming me." Carol nodded beside her. Richard sat with both hands folded on the table, wearing the expression he used whenever he wanted to appear reasonable while someone else did the accusing. My mother looked directly at me. "Before this goes any further, Emily needs to acknowledge the damage she caused. Calling an ambulance through the front of the estate created panic, and now she is treating a family misunderstanding like a public scandal. 4 days earlier, those words would have pushed me into defending myself. I would have explained my fear, softened my anger, and tried to prove that I had never intended to embarrass anyone." That afternoon, Lily was still recovering in the hospital, her throat raw from the breathing tube. I no longer cared whether my parents thought I had been polite. "I did not create the emergency," I said. "I called for help after all 3 of you tried to delay it." Carol opened her mouth, but Margaret raised one hand. "There will be no interruptions," she said. "Each person will answer a specific question. Then we will review the information connected to that answer." Margaret sat at the head of the table. Andrew was on her right, but he had placed his chair several feet away from Vanessa. The space between them said more than any announcement could have. The estate manager stood near a sideboard with a folder of records. Melissa sat across from Vanessa, holding her phone in both hands. I kept Lily's asthma plan and the hospital documents in a folder on my lap. Margaret looked at Vanessa first. "Did Emily give you a backup rescue inhaler before the ceremony?" "No," Vanessa answered. "She showed me one, but she kept it." Melissa shook her head. Margaret turned to her. "Describe what you saw." "Emily removed a blue inhaler from her purse," Melissa said. "She showed us Lily's name on the pharmacy label. She told Vanessa it was the backup and had to remain within reach. Vanessa accepted it and placed it in the outer pocket of her white bridal emergency bag." "That is not what happened," Vanessa said. Margaret reminded her of the rule against interrupting. Vanessa pressed her lips together and looked toward Andrew, but he did not meet her eyes. Margaret asked Melissa where she had been standing. "Near the dressing room door with my planning folder. I was close enough to hear every word." "You were distracted," Vanessa said. "There were people moving everywhere." I wrote the medical instruction in my event notes immediately afterward. Melissa opened the schedule stored on her phone. Beside Lily's name was a note entered before the ceremony. "Backup inhaler with bride. Main medical pouch in dressing room cabinet. The timestamp made it impossible for Melissa to have invented the note after Lily was hospitalized. Vanessa shifted in her chair. That still does not prove I kept it. Melissa moved everything. Margaret did not argue. She moved to the next question. Carol, did you understand that Lily's symptoms could become life-threatening without rescue medication? My mother placed a hand against her chest. I am not a doctor. Lily was walking and talking. I believed she was nervous because Emily was making everyone anxious. I took the asthma action plan from my folder and slid it across the table. You attended Lily's respiratory appointment 6 months ago, I said. You stayed while the nurse explained every warning sign. I attend appointments because I care about my granddaughter. That does not mean I remember every sentence. Margaret turned the page so Carol's signature faced upward. The acknowledgement stated in plain language that a child who could not speak in full sentences, showed color changes around the lips, or struggled visibly for air required immediate emergency help. My mother stared at her own name. You also told me at the wedding that Lily was not wheezing as badly as she had during her previous emergency room visit, I said. You remembered enough to compare the two attacks. Carol's expression hardened. I was trying to prevent you from frightening her. You told Lily that people would blame me if she interrupted the wedding. I never said that. Lily repeated it after the breathing tube was removed. Her voice was so damaged she could barely whisper, but she remembered your words. Carol looked around the table, searching for someone who would rescue her. Richard lowered his eyes. Margaret turned to him. Did you prevent Emily from leaving the estate? No, Richard said. Her car had been moved to overflow parking. I offered to bring it around. You refused to give me the keys. I was trying to avoid confusion. There were guests in the drive. The estate manager opened a laptop and played footage from the service corridor. There was no audio, but none was needed. The screen showed me holding out my hand. Richard covered his jacket pocket and stepped backward. When I moved toward the exit, he placed himself between me and the path leading to the lower parking area. The footage continued. Lily sat on the bench behind us, with one hand against her chest. Richard watched himself block the corridor. I did not understand how serious it was, he said. You heard me ask for the inhaler, I replied. You heard Lily say she could not take a full breath. You still kept the keys. Carol reached toward him beneath the table, but he moved his hand away. Margaret asked Vanessa another question. Did anyone ask whether emergency services should be called before Emily dialed 911? No, Vanessa said. Everything happened quickly. Emily suddenly grabbed Melissa's phone and panicked. Melissa unlocked her phone and opened the second screenshot. Her message read, Lily appears to be having trouble breathing. Should I call 911? Vanessa's reply appeared beneath it. No ambulance before the ceremony ends. My mother is handling Lily. The timestamp showed that the message had been sent before I made the call. Vanessa's face lost color. I was told Lily was anxious, she said. I thought Carol had it under control. You told Melissa not to call an ambulance, Andrew said. It was the first time he had spoken since the meeting began. I was confused. You also answered the dispatcher when she asked whether Lily had an inhaler. Vanessa looked at him. Everyone was shouting. You said no before Emily could answer. Why? I did not know what medication Lily had. You had spent the morning telling me you never received an inhaler, Andrew said. Now you are saying you were confused about where it was. Vanessa's voice rose. I was standing in my wedding dress while Emily was screaming and guests were staring. I did not have time to organize every detail. I was not screaming, I said. I was giving the dispatcher our address while my daughter could no longer finish her own name. Carol pushed back her chair. This has gone far enough. Vanessa made a mistake under pressure. Lily survived, and now everyone is acting as though my daughter wanted a child to die. Margaret's voice remained calm. No one at this table has said that. We are examining why prescribed medication disappeared and why several adults delayed emergency care. This is our family's business, Carol said. A medical emergency occurred on our property, Margaret replied. Your family made it our business when Vanessa used our staff and our estate to interfere with the response. Andrew finally looked at Vanessa. I spoke with an attorney, he said. I have moved out of the suite we were supposed to share. This marriage is over. My attorney will determine the fastest lawful process to end it. Vanessa stared at him as if she had not understood the sentence. You cannot end our marriage because of screenshots and a misunderstanding. I am ending it because you lied to me every day after a child nearly died. She reached for his arm, but he stood before she could touch him. You promised me you never held that inhaler, he said. You said Emily invented the entire exchange. She cannot prove otherwise. Melissa witnessed it. Melissa is protecting her business. The records show you entered the room where Lily's belongings had been moved. That proves nothing. The medication has never been found. The words left Vanessa's mouth with a sudden confidence. She looked at me as though she had discovered the weakness that would collapse everything around her. You can show all the messages you want, she said. There is no inhaler. There is no proof I ever had it. Margaret turned toward the estate manager. He gave a small nod. After Lily was taken to the hospital, Melissa had reported the medication missing. Margaret had ordered the bridal suite secured before Vanessa or any member of my family could remove the belongings inside. The estate staff had cataloged every bag and transferred them to a restricted office. Vanessa's expression changed as she understood what Margaret was saying. My things are private property, she said. You had no right to keep them. They were secured after a serious medical incident involving a missing prescription, the estate manager replied. You were informed that access was restricted while the incident report was completed. Andrew left the dining room without another word. For several seconds, the only sound was the quiet ticking of the clock behind Margaret. Vanessa stared at the doorway. Carol whispered that they should leave, but Richard did not move. Andrew returned with the estate manager beside him. Between them was a sealed inventory container from the venue office. The manager placed it on the table and documented the intact seal before opening the container. Inside was the white bridal emergency bag I had seen Vanessa carrying on the morning of the wedding. Vanessa stood so quickly that her chair struck the wall. Andrew set Vanessa's white bridal emergency bag on the table and asked the estate manager to open it in front of everyone. The estate manager placed both hands beside the white bridal emergency bag and explained what had happened to it after the ambulance left. Melissa had reported Lily's prescription medication missing. Margaret had immediately ordered the bridal suite secured. 2 employees had photographed every item exactly where it was found, listed the bags left inside, and transferred them to a restricted office. The numbered seal Andrew had just opened matched the number on the inventory form. Vanessa looked from the form to Margaret. You treated my wedding belongings like criminal evidence. No, the manager said. We preserved property connected to a serious medical incident until the authorities could determine whether it was relevant. He put on disposable gloves and opened the bag while everyone watched. The first items were ordinary. A sewing kit, tissues, powder, hairpins, pain reliever, stain remover, and a small bottle of perfume came out one at a time. Then he removed a folded veil, 2 unopened makeup products, and a packet of mints. Nothing blue appeared. Vanessa's shoulders slowly relaxed. She looked at Andrew, then at me. Are you satisfied now? Emily built this entire accusation around something she cannot prove. The manager checked the main compartment again and turned the empty lining toward us. Vanessa gave a short, bitter laugh. My wedding was stopped. My husband has left me, and strangers searched my private things because Emily needed someone to blame. I did not answer. I remembered the exact weight of the inhaler in my palm and the sound of the zipper when Vanessa placed it in the outer pocket. Melissa remembered it too. The absence of the medication would not erase the messages, the delay, or Lily's hospital record. The manager ran his fingers along the inside seam, then he stopped. There is an inner pocket beneath the lining, he said. Vanessa's chair scraped against the floor. That pocket is for jewelry. There is nothing in it. The zipper was small and nearly hidden by a fold of white satin. The manager opened it and tilted the bag over the inventory cloth. A blue rescue inhaler fell onto the table. It rolled past the powder compact, struck the edge of Andrew's wedding ring, and stopped with the pharmacy label facing upward. Lily Carter. For several seconds, no one moved. I could see the tiny scratch near the base where Lily had once dropped it on our kitchen floor. I remembered turning the label toward Vanessa that morning so she could read my daughter's name. I remembered telling her that the medication had to remain within reach. I remembered trusting her. Melissa leaned forward, but she did not touch it. That is the inhaler, Emily handed Vanessa, she said. It had the same blue casing, the same white pharmacy label, and Lily's name printed along the side. Vanessa placed it in the outer pocket of this bag while I was standing beside them. Vanessa shook her head. Emily planted it. The accusation was so immediate that even Carol looked startled. I have not been inside the bridal suite since before the ceremony, I said. You could have given it to someone. Margaret slid the access records across the table. The bridal suite had been locked minutes after Melissa completed the incident report. The only entries afterward belonged to the 2 employees who photographed and cataloged the room. The hallway camera showed them carrying the unopened bag directly to the restricted office. The inventory seal remained intact until Andrew and the manager opened it in front of us. Vanessa turned toward Melissa. Then she planted it. Melissa's face went pale, but her voice remained steady. The video shows I never handled the bag after the ambulance left. Someone did this to me. Andrew finally spoke. The inhaler has Lily's prescription label. Emily gave it to you. It was found inside a zippered pocket of your bag. Tell the truth once. Vanessa stared at him, and for the first time that afternoon, I saw fear replace calculation. I did not mean for any of this to happen, she said. No one responded. She looked at Carol before continuing. Melissa moved the blue pouch because it looked terrible in the dressing room. When Emily started asking questions, I knew everyone would blame me for allowing it to be moved. Where was the main pouch? I asked. I do not know. Staff were moving things everywhere. You had the backup in your hand. I put it in my bag earlier. You told me you returned it to the pouch. I was under pressure. Lily was the one under pressure. She could not breathe. Vanessa pressed both palms against the table. When the dispatchers started asking about medication, I panicked. If I pulled the inhaler out then, everyone would know I had it while you were searching. I shoved it into the inner pocket because people were watching. The room seemed to narrow around her words. You heard the dispatcher, I said. You saw Lily struggling, and you hid the medicine instead of giving it to her. I thought the paramedics were already coming. They were coming because I took someone else's phone after you tried to delay them. I made a mistake. A mistake would have been moving the pouch and immediately helping us find it. You lied while Lily lost the ability to speak. Vanessa began crying, but the tears did not change what she had admitted. She still described her choices as panic, confusion, and pressure. She never said that Lily's life should have mattered more than the ceremony. Carol rose so suddenly that her chair nearly overturned. This is what you wanted, Emily. You wanted to destroy your sister because you have resented her your entire life. I wanted my daughter's medication. You have turned everyone against us. You endangered Lily, then tried to erase what happened. Carol pointed at the inhaler. Vanessa did not know the attack would become that serious. You knew, I said. Your signature proved it. Richard covered his face with one hand. When Carol ordered him to say something, he looked at me instead. I kept the keys because your mother told me an ambulance in front of the Whitmores would humiliate Vanessa, he said. Carol stared at him. Richard continued before she could stop him. She said Lily was still talking and that we could wait until the vows were finished. I knew you wanted to leave. I decided keeping the peace was more important. His confession did not excuse him. It only removed the last place he had tried to hide. He had not been confused. He had obeyed Carol because opposing her was less uncomfortable than risking Lily's safety. The dining room doors opened. Mr. Harris entered with another investigator, who had been waiting in Margaret's office by prior arrangement. They did not place anyone in handcuffs. Mr. Harris photographed the inhaler where it lay, confirmed the inventory record, and advised Vanessa, Carol, and Richard that each would be contacted for a formal recorded interview. He also told them not to contact Lily directly or attempt to influence her account. Carol protested that she was Lily's grandmother. "That does not give you permission to interfere with an active review involving a child," he said. Andrew placed his wedding ring beside the bag. "You will not return to the Whitmore residence," he told Vanessa. "Your access has been removed from the house, the estate, and the foundation. My attorney will handle every communication about ending the marriage." Vanessa looked toward Margaret, expecting one final rescue. Margaret only told her that the family's charitable organization would not be used to shield anyone who withheld emergency medication from a child. I handed Mr. Harris the written notice Dana had helped me prepare. It stated that I was seeking formal protective boundaries and would not permit my parents or Vanessa to have direct or unsupervised contact with Lily while the authorities completed their review. Any necessary communication had to go through me, Dana, or counsel. My mother read the notice and began crying again. "You cannot take our granddaughter away from us." I looked at the blue inhaler on the table. "You gave up the right to demand access when you taught her to hide her pain for your comfort." They had entered the Whitmore home, believing money and family loyalty would bury the truth. They left knowing the people they wanted to impress would not protect them. The evidence could no longer be erased, and I would never again negotiate with anyone who treated my daughter's life as an inconvenience. What they still did not understand was that they were about to lose their place in Lily's life completely. Several weeks passed before Lily could climb the stairs without stopping to catch her breath. Her lungs recovered faster than her sense of safety. A sudden cough made her look for me. The smell of strong perfume made her shoulders tighten. Whenever an adult said, "You are fine," she became quiet instead of answering. Her pediatric team arranged follow-up care with a child life specialist named Rachel. During their first meeting, Rachel placed 2 cards on the table. One said, "Safe to ask." The other said, "Keep quiet." She gave Lily simple situations and asked her to choose which card belonged with each one. If your chest feels tight, Lily touched Safe to ask. If an adult says the event is too important to interrupt, her hand hovered between the cards. Rachel did not correct her immediately. She asked what Lily thought would happen if she chose the first one. "People might blame Mom," Lily said. I had to look away. Rachel told her that children were never responsible for protecting adults from embarrassment. She repeated that asking for medicine was not disobedience, and calling for help was not ruining anything. Over the following visits, Lily practiced saying, "I need my inhaler now," in a voice strong enough to be heard. At home, we practiced too. I would pretend to be a teacher, a coach, or a busy relative. Lily would interrupt me and name what she needed. Each time, I stopped immediately and thanked her for speaking. The first time she did it without hesitation, she smiled as though she had discovered a door that had always been locked. The authorities confirmed temporary protective boundaries while they completed their review. Carol, Richard, and Vanessa were not permitted to contact Lily directly or approach her school, medical appointments, or our home. Any necessary communication had to go through the proper channels. I expected the order to make me feel victorious. Instead, I grieved the family I had spent years pretending we might become. Vanessa remained separated from Andrew. His attorney began the legal process to end the marriage through the fastest lawful route available. The Whitmores removed Vanessa's access to their home, social events, and charitable foundation. She also faced formal interviews, possible civil responsibility for Lily's medical expenses and harm, and continued scrutiny over the missing medication and delayed emergency response. Andrew sent me one message. He said he was sorry he had not recognized Vanessa's character before the wedding, and that he would cooperate fully with every request for records or testimony. I thanked him, but I did not tell him he could have prevented what happened. That burden belonged to the people who had received the warnings and made their choices. Margaret handled the situation with the same restraint she had shown from the beginning. She did not use her family's influence to threaten anyone or publicize Lily's name. Through the foundation, she funded a pediatric asthma awareness program for schools and event venues. The materials focused on rescue medication, danger signs, and the rule that appearances must never delay emergency care. She asked for my opinion before the program launched, but she did not turn Lily into a symbol without permission. I appreciated that more than any public apology. My father wrote to me 2 weeks after the meeting. His letter was only 1 page long. He admitted that he had heard Lily say she could not take a full breath. He admitted that he had kept the keys because Carol wanted the wedding protected from embarrassment. He wrote that he had spent most of his marriage choosing obedience because it was easier than conflict. He ended by asking whether I could forgive him. I read the letter twice, then placed it in the folder with the other records. My reply was brief. Accountability is not a request for comfort. You chose peace with Carol over Lily's safety. I am not ready to forgive you, and forgiveness would not restore access to my daughter. Richard did not answer. Carol sent messages from several numbers. She said I was punishing the whole family for one terrible afternoon. She reminded me of holidays, birthdays, and everything she claimed to have done for me. She said Lily would grow up believing family could be discarded whenever someone made a mistake. I preserved the messages that might matter to the review, then blocked every number. The hardest truth was that Carol still believed the greatest harm was losing control of us. She never asked what Lily needed to feel safe again. Melissa requested permission to visit after Lily returned home. I agreed because she had told the truth, when hiding would have been easier, but I did not erase the part she played in the delay. She sat across from Lily at our kitchen table and apologized without excuses. I should have called 911 when I first saw you struggling, she said. I was afraid of losing my job, and I waited for another adult to do the right thing. That was wrong. Lily looked at me before asking, "Why did you save the messages?" "Because I knew what Vanessa was asking me to do was wrong," Melissa said. I was not brave enough soon enough, but I did not want her to erase it. I accepted her apology cautiously. I told her that helping afterward mattered, but it did not make the earlier silence harmless. She nodded and said she understood. Before leaving, Melissa gave Lily a small card with the venue's new policy. Any reported breathing problem involving a child would trigger an immediate medical response. No bride, family member, or client could override it. The policy could not change our wedding day, but it might protect someone else. I also changed every part of Lily's emergency system. She carried one rescue inhaler in a pouch that stayed on her body. Her school nurse kept another. A third remained at home beside the written action plan. Her teacher, my closest friend, and the parents of the 2 children she visited most often, all received clear instructions. No one was allowed to move her medication for photographs, clothing, appearances, or convenience. I asked Lily to help choose the new pouch. She selected a bright red one that would be impossible to hide among white dresses or decorations. On the front, she asked me to attach a patch that said, "My medicine stays with me." The afternoon we hung it beside the front door. Lily stood on the bottom step and looked at the card inside. It listed the people authorized to help her. My name came first, followed by her school nurse, her teacher, Rachel, and 2 trusted friends. Carol, Richard, and Vanessa were not on it. Lily traced the edge of the card with one finger. "Does this mean Grandma and Grandpa are not our family anymore?" I sat beside her on the step. "It means being related to someone does not give them permission to hurt you or ignore what you need. What about Aunt Vanessa? She made choices that put you in danger. Until she takes responsibility and professionals decide contact is safe, she will not be part of your life." Lily looked down at the pouch. "Then, is it just us?" The question held more sadness than fear. I put my arm around her and drew her close. We have people who tell the truth. Come when we call, and help you breathe. Family is not measured by how many chairs are filled at a holiday table. It is measured by whether the people in those chairs make you safe. She leaned against me. So, we still have a family. Yes, I said. We always did. That evening, I checked the inhaler one final time and hung the red pouch on its hook beside the door. It was visible from every room that mattered. No one would ever hide it again to protect a photograph, a ceremony, or a family name. For most of my life, I believed keeping the peace meant swallowing pain and giving dangerous people another chance. Lily taught me the truth. Peace purchased with a child's safety is not peace, and blood does not grant anyone permanent access to the child they chose not to protect.